So exposure to domestic violence dramatically increases risk. It's about twice as likely that there will be drug abuse and alcohol abuse in the family in households where there are victims of child abuse. Disability is a risk factor. In Florida, prior report to the child abuse hotline is a very high risk factor. It's worse than many other parts of the country, and it's complicated, but we see over and over again children who are reported to the hotline. Sure, there are people who are wrongly accused, but I don't know, anybody show of hands in the room? Anybody had 10 reports to the child abuse hotline regarding their family? So, once, yeah, maybe that was just a fluke, but, over and over and over again, and then they keep coming up with there's no findings, it doesn't make any sense. One of the things we have to really keep in mind is that the primary problem with child abuse is that the person who has abused the child is full-on lying about what happened. And we have to remember that what we're being told is the history is a bunch of baloney, and it's our job to figure that out. So again, in the history, and this is a little different because in many of these children, they're young children, and so they can't give their own history. So we're getting history from the caretakers. And again, keep in mind that they're usually lying. So we have to ask lots of questions to trip them up. Most of the time they've thought of the main lie, but they haven't thought of all the details. So if you keep asking questions, the story falls apart. And so that is where we get this idea of sort of inconsistent details, different details provided by different caretakers when they're interviewed separately. If we keep going backwards, then we often get information in terms of what was going on leading up to this injury that the child sustained. When in a child who's brain dead was the last time that they were up and running around and playing, because that tells you that at that point, this injury had not occurred. So we can narrow down the timing of the injury and the perpetrator and things like that by asking a detailed history. So these are just other kinds of questions that we would ask. We can, again, get a little bit of an idea, just like asking women how they settle arguments. What's discipline at your house? Now, a lot of these children who have had DCF come to their home multiple times are pretty savvy with this. And, they talk about timeout and they, say, oh, no, I never get hit and things like that. Well, the younger ones sometimes are, out of the mouths of babes come great information sometimes. So, most of the time the older kids have been well coached, but the little kids can't keep the story together if you keep asking questions. So we want to look and see if the explanation is consistent with the injury. Are there any really objective witnesses? And is what we're being told consistent with the child's age and developmental level? So, this is where we have an advantage often in these situations is we know child development, or at least we're supposed to, and we see a wide range of